lead. Let's go to the Make It Right, Call Kyle Right hotline. We welcome in Brady Quinn, ladies and gentlemen, former Browns quarterback, current NFL and college football analyst, Fox Sports Radio. Third and Goal Foundation. Brady, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ken. I think I heard the tail end of that conversation. I think we'd all admit, like, everyone doesn't like Michigan, right? If you're a Ohio State fan, Notre Dame fan, I mean, I know there's some bad blood between the two, but we can all agree nobody likes Michigan.
I'm not the biggest Michigan fan, but Lima would lead you to believe I'm a Michigan
Brady,
fan, which is weird.
Did you get texts from obnoxious Michigan fans who never really cared about basketball before, rubbing it in your face that they won a national championship last night?
Okay, I'll start by saying this. I don't want to defend them, but I do. The Michigan fans that I know, I've got a brother-in-law who played hockey there. I've got, obviously Braylon Edwards and I were teammates, still very close to this day. They've always also been basketball fans. Like, I would actually argue that they take great pride in anything Michigan does. There's a couple other people who, like, one was a baseball player there that I know, and he would even brag about, pick your sport, like swimming or something. So I would actually argue that they are pretty proud no matter what it is, and part of the reason why they'll brag about the other sports or other achievements is because they want to distract you from whatever the hell just went on with Sharon Moore or whatever other scandal they've got going on. Usually it's kind of like a magic trick. They want you to look over here and not actually what's happening behind the scenes.
What I tell you, Tone? What I tell you?
That's pretty good.
I said it this morning. Thank you very much. Brady Quinn joining us on the show. All right, Brady, number 6 overall. What should the Browns do?
Oh, geez. I would say go with the offensive line. I feel like this is a draft where you've got a number of guys that make sense. I love the tackle out of Utah. I'm not going to get into the specifics. He's just – every time I've seen him, he's been a road grader. He's been great in pass protection. And I think there's a thought nowadays that, like, hey, well, if we feel like we're good at tackle, he's always going to be sit on the bench. It's like, no, you get your best 5 out there. Like that has been happening at the college level for a while now. And I think as we've gone to, more of a passing league at every level, whether that's high school, college, or the NFL, you just want to get your best 5 out there. And you've got guys who've got the ability to be able to play inside despite their length or despite what their previous experience was and adapt to that, as long as you feel comfortable with the 5 that you've got out there. So he, to me, would make a lot of sense. I think he's one of the most bulletproof prospects in this class. And I think he would be a big-time need. I think a lot of people want there to be a decision made at quarterback or maybe another position. I think you wait and see what happens this year, and you will find yourself with a much better class in 2027 for some of the positions that I think most people want, whether that's a quarterback or a wide receiver.
Would you not ignore, that's a terrible word. Would you go away from quarterback altogether this year? Like day 3, would you maybe, I don't know, take a run at a QB if one tickled your fancy, or you're just going, you know what, you got 3 in that room already. We don't need a crowd. We're just moving on to 2027.
No, I think if there's one you love and maybe you've got a little rated higher, or you feel like, hey, this is a guy we'd like to see what he can do. We don't have expectations for him to play this year, but we can take him. I mean, you could make the case maybe Shedeur fell into that category last year. So I would not be resistant to that, but it better be a guy, though, that you see some potential value in. Otherwise, you're wasting a pick on a guy who's going to basically make the roster because you want to see what you've got in him, and he's a developmental player, not a guy that can maybe contribute as a starter. So that's the only caveat to saying that. But, yeah, I think this is a big year for the quarterback position in the sense of you got to – if you're paying Watson, so obviously he should probably start and play, but I'd love to see more of Shedeur. I'd love to see how he develops. I'd love to see what he could become. Dylan Gabriel's been kind of a forgotten man, but I think if you were going to move him or do something – now would probably be the time, because after the draft happens, there's not going to be as much trade value, in my opinion.
Brady Quinn joined us on the hotline. So Jeremiah Love is somebody that we almost all agree. Like, we'd be shocked if he wasn't a good NFL player. And it's has been rare in the past to take running backs early because it's considered not a premium position. And yet there has been a trend in the NFL with running backs becoming back a part of the game, more formidable, and some taken high, that maybe the Browns should look at Jeremiah Love at number 6. Do you think that would make any sense?
I'd love to see it. I personally feel like he's the best overall prospect in this draft class, and for a myriad of reasons. I think in this world of the NFL now, you want a back who's able to impact the game, not only running the football. I think everyone knows about his home run hitting ability. His top line speed as a 4.3 guy. They've seen the hurdles. They've seen his elusiveness. To me, it's what he brings to you schematically. And so for Todd Monken, when you can put him out as a wide receiver and he's going to run routes like a wide receiver, that's tough for any safety, any linebacker to try to play man-to-man coverage. And so oftentimes it's going to give you that mismatch you're looking for, or at least try to help out in the passing game of taking some attention away from someone else out there because he is such a dynamic playmaker. So I love just his versatility and what he's able to do as well. So could it make some sense? Yeah. Is it a bigger need maybe than you say O-line, or if we're building for the future, is that where you want to go? That's up for Andrew Berry and the rest of the front office. But I think everyone knows, like, I love Jeremiah Love. And by the way, I'd say this quickly on that note. If you didn't go with Love there, Jadarian Price is a hell of a back too. Like, if you're thinking about another running back, the other running back in Notre Dame doesn't get as much appreciation, but he is an absolute menace out there in the field. I mean, and he's got that style of running that I think is very conducive for the NFL. He's a one-cut guy. He's got a little more wiggle than you're accustomed to. Plays great between the tackles, super efficient, super strong runner, and he's a very capable player out of the backfield catching the football. So I think there's value there even after Jeremiah Love. You know, both the running back out of Penn State, but those guys too are very talented backs. So if you don't go there, I don't think it's the end of the world for the Browns. I think you could find, potential, stars later on in this draft at running back.
Brady Quinn joining us here on the Make It Right, Call Kyle Wright hotline. Let me take a step back for a second. Going back to quarterbacks, you said you're paying Watson. He should start and play. He should probably start and play. Do you believe that you would start Deshaun Watson week 1 for this football team?
Yeah, he's the most experienced. I think if you, again, it's a long-winded conversation, but ultimately you've paid him and you're paying him. So you got to kind of see what's still there, in my opinion. I think if he's healthy and he's able to, then you got to play him, and then you can move on to the younger guy depending on how things go. But that's how I would see the beginning of the season. You go with the guy who's got the most experience, the most starts doing it, and see where he is at, and see if there's anything left to salvage because of the commitment that you made however many years ago. That maybe sounds like more of a business decision and answer, but that's what this league is. And that's what I think you've got to find out this year before you start over again next year, because it's the biggest financial burden. And so before you kind of move on or see what's there, I think you've got to kick the tires on that one last time, and then you can turn it over to Shedeur, or then you can turn it over to Dylan Gabriel if he's there as well.
Could it be at all better for Shedeur if Watson starts the season and then he comes in? Is it a chance to maybe catch his breath?
I think it's that, but I think it's also he's not going to be looking over his shoulder. Like, I think once you make that move, you're in. You're there. Like, you don't have to worry about it. Again, just my opinion. Maybe Todd Monken and the coaching staff sees it different. But
well, you played it. We didn't. So, I got to go with you. Yeah.
Well, but what I'd say is when you start with the veteran, right, you already know what you pretty much have. I mean, maybe there's to some degree his health and in this system and what he could do under Monken. But you've got to start with there. And then once you turn it over to Shedeur, whoever's next, whether it's Dylan Gabriel or him, that's their team. Like, he doesn't have to look over his shoulder. Watson's only coming back due to injury or something else if the team sees that fit, given, again, the contractual obligation. So that's why I look at it that way, because I think if you really care about winning, he probably gives you the best chance to win to start the season. But at some point, if you've moved on from that and you feel like he's proven that not to be the case, then you go with the young guy, you get him experience, you see how much, again, either Dylan or Shedeur, how much they can grow from that point moving forward.
Brady Quinn with us on the hotline. I'm not sure what your preconceived notions were on Shedeur Sanders before he got drafted. Obviously, everybody had an opinion about him, and then somehow he ends up falling to the 5th. And then he got playing time, had some good moments, also had some rookie moments as well. How tough is it going to be for him to have a new offense and a new coach, or is that something that is exactly what the doctor ordered?
I always think it's difficult. At this point in time in his career, you're still learning this game. It's a different game than college. The way the field's even designed and how you go about, looking at defenses and reading coverage and defense it's a transition. And so, not only are you adapting to that, you're adapting to last year's offense, the footwork they want to do to play within, the timing and rhythm of all of that, adapting to the receivers that you're throwing to, how they work in and out of cuts. Like, everyone's different, so the timing's going to be different. There's some wide receivers that when you throw a 5-step plant throw, or let's say it's 3-step and gun plant throw or off one hitch, sometimes with those guys, if they're a little longer strided, they might take them longer to get out of the cut. So you're going to take a little bigger drop. You can time that up a little easier. Some guys are quicker and they're faster and out of it. So you have to get off that, third step, hitching back up to throw much faster. So there's just all those little nuances that you're still adapting to. And for him to have to learn, again, a new offense, a new language, a new system, that can be difficult. And it's one of the reasons why I think when you see a lot of young quarterbacks in the league, when they have success early on, it's usually because there's a lot of continuity in the system and the players around them and the coaching staff. And unfortunately, that just hasn't been the case for Cleveland pretty much since they came back in 1999.
Brady Quinn joining us on the show. What do you think Todd Monken can do with this offense, with this team that Kevin Stefanski wasn't able to?
Well, I mean, look, I've got a lot of respect for Kevin Stefanski. I think he tends to, however, be somewhat stubborn in his ways of how he wants to do things. And, I think with Todd Monken, I like how he opens things up. I like how he can be a little bit more flexible and adapts more to his personnel and what they like doing or what they excel at. And to me, that's always the sign of a great play caller, really any great coach, is if you're putting your players in a position to succeed and not asking them to do things that are outside of what they do really well, at least not before they're able to work on it and improve it. So I think there's those elements of it. I also feel like with Todd Monken, he's always been really, at least in my opinion, again, known as more of an attacking style of a play caller. He's not afraid to take shots. He's not afraid to push the ball down the field. He's not afraid to do some unique things too. Kevin Stefanski's base, coming from that more Kubiak system and that, ultimately more of that kind of Shanahan tree, if you really look at it, the outside zone running game, everything's kind of built off that. I always kind of wondered how it was going to fit with Deshaun Watson's skill set, a guy who played primarily his football in college and the NFL before he got to Cleveland in shotgun. And it's just, it's documented. I mean, hell, I called a few NFL games last year, and one of the things we looked at from the change from Michael Penix, who was almost exclusively in shotgun and really even the pistol, versus Kirk Cousins when he came in for him being under center, was a 2-yard advantage on the rush attempts for Bijan Robinson when Cousins is under center. And you see that oftentimes that the running backs, they get it deeper, they get in a spot where they just are able to hit the hole and accelerate much better when the quarterback's under center versus in shotgun. And so when you have this pairing of, even though you have the offensive line and running back and the system, but you've got a quarterback that doesn't feel comfortable under center, it takes away from what that offense ultimately could be. So I always kind of felt like that was an odd match for the personnel with Deshaun Watson and what he was experienced in doing, and then what Stefanski wanted to do or what his offense has been. And now you work with Monken. I mean, look, he's very comfortable and accustomed to working from shotgun, doing a lot of the different run games concepts and so forth. So I think it's a better pairing for maximizing Shedeur, Deshaun, Dylan, and all of that, because all those guys have played primarily, out of shotgun. And again, I think he's more comfortable with that.
Brady, have you hit on something that we've been talking about a lot, and I think we've seen play out in the NFL, which is the young quarterbacks are coming into the league after basically never being under center in college football, and then they come into the NFL, and it seems like defenses have the edge right now. We saw so many quarterbacks that we even thought were good kind of come back to the pack over the last few years in the NFL. Do we have a crisis right now, and is college contributing to it?
You have a lack of development, and by the way, it's not just college; it's at the grassroots level. It's at the little league football. I've got nieces and nephews, kids who are playing flag, and it's like, what do? Well, they start them in shotgun. And so the problem with that for quarterbacks is there's always been a sense of timing and rhythm, meaning if I'm taking 3 steps, that coincides with a 3-step slant, right? And we can back it up even further. If I'm throwing a 10-yard out, that coincides with a 5-step from under center drop. I plant my 5th step and I'm throwing that ball to a spot that, again, if it's open, that's where you're throwing the football. That's the timing and rhythm of it. And then even as you grow and progress, you've got 5 eligible receivers. So as you work in these different progressions, you're dropping back 5 steps or 7 steps, or hitching once, hitching twice, hitching third time. By that point, you've moved through 4 of those intended targets. And you should be either scrambling or checking it down to your 5th option. So that's kind of the timing and rhythm and sense that a lot of quarterbacks were taught and raised on, and you're not seeing that anymore. And because of that, because at the NFL level, the athletes on defense are so much better than the guys in particular on offense and really in the trenches up front on the O-line, you just don't have time. And so you've got to be able to throw with anticipation. You have to be able to throw to spots. You have to be able to understand, too, what you're seeing. And I think that's the other thing is you're getting players who are very prepared from a fundamental standpoint in how they throw. Like their mechanics in many ways are flawless. So it's not like you get there and you had a 3-sport athlete. Like I grew up playing football, baseball, basketball. So people were always kind of tinkering with, footwork or grip or throwing motion or something because I never had the throwing coach. Not like these kids. These kids have specialized from the time they're probably in 4th, 5th grade. And so their mechanics are flawless. The problem is they've been reading defenses usually with 7 kids out there. They haven't had the other 4. So they don't look at a front, with a 4-down look or a 3-down look and how that messes with how you're going about reading not only coverage because the fronts tie into what the coverages look like, but everything that goes along with, having 11 defenders out there on the field and then having to turn your back to the defense and turn your back around and re-identify or reconfirm what the coverage is. Those are all things that you're taught when you start playing football under center as opposed to starting in shotgun. And so that to me is the biggest issue is the game has transformed in many ways. And I think the hard part now, and especially when you go from the younger levels to the NFL level, is that term RPO, the run pass option. In college, they can have a line maybe 3 yards downfield. And so really when you look at that, I mean, think about how far downfield that player can be before the official makes that call. And there's oftentimes they miss it too. In the NFL, it's only a yard. And so the RPO offense that works in high school and college, and it's a high percentage of plays that they run in the passing game, it just doesn't really exist as much in the NFL. So that's the other thing is like the way you teach the eyes of the quarterbacks has completely changed. I mean, at RPO, you're reading one defender. If he triggers on the run, you're throwing the football. If he stays back on the pass, you hand it off. When you read an actual pass concept in the NFL, you're reading multiple players in the field. You're looking at how the nickel's playing, how the cornerbacks, are they on, are they off? Does the nickel have inside leverage, outside leverage? Where are the safeties at? Are they near the hash or the outside? Are they more to the middle of the field? There's all these things you're looking for. And so it's a completely different game. And unfortunately, no one's being taught that anymore at younger levels.
Brady, amazing as always. Thank you so much for the time. The website, thirdandgoalfoundation.org. We know you do some great work with them, with the veterans there. They got a golf outing coming up in August. Check it out, thirdandgoalfoundation.org. Brady, thank you for the time.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Brady Quinn, Fox Sports, Big Noon Kick, the whole thing. He's on everything. On the Make It Right, call Kyle Wright hotline. I got to listen to him talk about quarterbacks forever.